I'm just so excited to be sitting here with Fred, who I've been in contact with for several years now. Um, I wrote to Fred one time and I said, when I feel like I'm going off track, I read one of your poems and it brings me back in. And if your poetry irritates the hell out of me, I know I've gone way too far off track and I need to go and sit under a tree for a while until I can be with your words and your voice because that's how bright your light is to me, Fred. And your poems are the nectar of the gods. And there's so much radiance and beauty in every line. So I'm just honored to finally sit with you and have a conversation and to share you with my audience. Thank you for coming. How are you doing in these incredibly chaotic and wonderful times?
I'm doing fine because like, for instance, in the middle of the night last night, I was lying there, couldn't sleep. That's happened to me a lot around 3 o'clock in the morning, some kind of energy, but I wasn't worried about anything, just this energetic stuff in the atmosphere. And I realized there were all these troubled people out there. And all of a sudden, I went back to my breath and my heart, and I realized, oh my God, I am made out of happiness. That's what this existence is in its essential nature. And we've been terribly alienated from it. We've been brainwashed to think that terrible things are happening and we're all off base. And I just came home to my heart. So simple. And I realized we're made out of this. And so we're the aliens. We've been alienated from our own planet, from our own planetary beauty. And I realized, oh my God, we've been blaming the government and blaming that party and blaming this party and this group and that group. And we're not groups. We're not groups. We're individual hearts, each one radiant. Maybe I'll just express that. Can I read a short poem?
Oh, please, yes.
Okay, so maybe this is just all I'm saying. It's called Shatter. God. Sorry, I do talk about God.
Why are you apologizing? Isn't that
But
interesting?
all
We
those people out there who say, "Oh God, he's talking about God." So sometimes I really don't call it. I've heard you say this too. I don't just call it consciousness and source, and like cosmic existence. No, no, it's very personal. So anyway, this is called Shattering. God meant to drop this mirror, shattering into countless images her perfect gaze. That is why we meet in brokenness, fitting our pieces together again through each other's eyes until we recognize one face with 8 billion reasons for astonishment.
That is stunning.
So that's what we're doing here in this shattered world, seeing it, learning to see what it really is. That's all we're doing here, learning to see what it really is. We can help each other do that instead of blaming each other. It would be great.
I think people project their own pain onto everything. So in your poem that you just read, the line, I don't have the exact words, looking into someone else's eyes. I don't think some people can do that. What do you think?
Well, when you work in a prison, as I have, or in a mental hospital, One of the instructions you're told is not to make eye contact.
Wow.
Can you imagine? So when you get into all that hostility and craziness, they no, 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 don't make eye contact because they experience that as an intrusion, as hostility, as an attack. So isn't that interesting? Um, so it's kind of like permission. I think in a conversation, when the trust has begun to flow, when you've allowed the other person to feel that you're not a threat, then make eye contact. But don't go up to people and say, "Oh, I'm making eye contact with you." You know, there's some people like that. I used to work as a chaplain at this college, really hippie college, one of the last true far left hippie colleges. I loved it actually. I had a ministry there of
Wow.
interfaith, interreligion. I loved it, and people would come. But you know, you you had people who were so trying so hard to make eye contact and to be in the now and to come up to you, you know, and like it's like, okay, okay, I get it. So yeah, you don't have to be aggressive in your desire to make spiritual contact with people. Just be. So much has to do with gazing into the eye of your own heart.
Yes.
And then it just everything else comes out of that. Jesus said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all the rest will be added." I mean, that is so. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. And then he said, the kingdom of God is within you.
Yeah.
So that's a statement about government, about sovereignty. And we've been deluded into thinking that we have to worship the sovereignty of kings and government bureaucrats and the almighty state. And we've projected all of our sovereignty. It's not just we're projecting negativity, but we've lost our sovereignty over ourselves and we've given it away. We've given our power away to governments and their bureaucrats. They want to control us. They want to divide us into these groups, deny our personal being as individuals, and then take control of our lives. So Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. That's sovereignty. It's beautiful. That's my politics. I guess I would say, as I told you before we got on, I finally figured out my political party. Um, it's the, what did I say it was?
You write a
Uh,
poem about that.
oh, LCA. That's my party. Libertarian Christian Anarchist.
Anarchists. I thought you were going to say you're in the political party with the worms and the butterflies, the birds,
I am. I am.
and the
I can write a
wolves
poem about
and
that
the
too.
silence in the heart. I think I was on a podcast where they end with three questions. You know, some of these hosts say, I ask these questions to all of my guests. If you could wake up tomorrow with one wish come true, what would it be? And so I answered, I said, what would the world be like if everybody woke up and could see everybody's soul? You could just see their soul. And you would realize that everybody, is the same weight, value, beauty.
You know that there is in the yoga teachings and in the Upanishads is the teaching of Turiya. Have you ever heard of Turiya? It means
No.
the fourth state of consciousness. So we're normally caught up in waking, dreaming, and sleep. But there is pure consciousness, pure being, and it's the radiance of who we are. So you said wake up in the morning. One of the natural times that we experience Toria, which we can experience in meditation, but everyone has some experience of that in the transition between waking and sleep physiologically. So as you wake up in the morning, there's a few moments before all of yesterday and all its problems come crashing in, the mind, before the mind kicks in, but you're awake. You're lucid, but you're not dreaming. You're not in deep sleep. And your mind hasn't begun its thinking trips. And for just a few moments, it's like the blue sky of infinite awareness. And that's who we are. That's the mirror, unshattered. And so you can sort of catch that moment in an innocent way before you wake up, before you jump out of bed. It's so refreshing. If you catch that moment and just say, thank you, that can bless your whole day.
Before they go and put the calm trail over the blue sky in your heart. I saw a dog behind you. Do you have a dog in the room with you?
Oh, I have two of them.
Oh,
That's Emerson. Emerson
hello.
is a little golden poodle, and on the floor there is a big, big brown standard poodle named Finn.
Fabulous.
So,
Very intelligent dogs, poodles,
yeah,
and
they are.
inspiring. I'm learning a lot actually from my cat.
Yes, yes,
I'm
yes. That's
feeling
Eckhart
very
Tolle.
strongly. Yeah, because you're coming back to the heart always from the heart, and your poetry is written from the heart. And as I said when I was introducing you, when I drift away from my heart is when your poems irritate me because I realize how far away I've drifted. And it really is like the world is just so designed to take us out of that space. That's why sitting and coming back into it is so important. But everybody's so busy, so many distractions, so much to do, and I can't help but feel it's deliberate.
Yeah, but we have this choice. We still have the choice. Oh, what I was going to say about your cat is you might have heard this. Eckhart Tolle said that he has met several Zen masters in his life, and all of them were cats. So this poem is called Gospel. Nothing is wrong. You have never not been free. This is the good news. Every photon of your flesh is the boundless sky. This is the good news. You lost yourself in the shadow of beauty so that beauty might find you again. There is no bad news. Healing comes from a heartbroken place where you've breathed out everything you carried. Stay there. The next breath is God's love.
That is a beautiful, it's like it's a frequency in those words. It feels like a frequency that you can tune into just by connecting to that.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I sort of don't have any control over when I write a poem. It's usually when it comes in the breath of morning, just in that morning time, just that seed is planted. Or after I've been practicing regular morning and evening meditation for, like 55 years. So right at the end of meditation, that again on the breath, it comes and a poem begins. And it's like Yes, it's a frequency. It's like a golden light. I hope I'm not sounding too weird here. I've never told anybody about this. It's like this ocean of golden light, and it is my heart. And it just begins to waves come up, and those waves are waves of consciousness, but they form words. Just on that verge where silence begins to form words, that's where poetry comes from. So it is a frequency. The words are just what would you call them? Just instruments to like carry the frequency.
Mm.
Little instruments, little transistors, and radio tubes to carry the frequency.
But they go out into the world as an antidote for all the other words.
Yeah, you know, the science of words, science of mantra. In the pagan tradition of Europe, it was a science of spells, God spell, gospel, word of
Mm.
God. Every religious tradition goes back to the, including tribal traditions, back to the power of words and names. So words are very important. And when we speak words out, they have the power to create, to heal, but also to destroy. And you know, I think that power has been ruined not only by negative words, but by uh, rumor and gossip.
Yeah.
And that's why social media can be wonderful, but it can also be just dissipate our energy so much. People just throwing out stuff they hear, just gossip. And that gossip will degenerate your nervous system and your mind by dissipating that original energy of the word, the original energy to create through your intention, through your thought. It's all dissipated through spreading rumor and gossip. And it's a whole industry who does that. I mean, that's a huge multi-billion-dollar industry spreading rumor and gossip. And that weakens people. I think it's intentional. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
I don't know, I was studying the algorithm and how it gives people more of what they want and how it elicits the emotional response. So it doesn't rate happiness over anger. So if people are getting angry and they're furiously typing, the algorithm goes, oh, they want more of this and gives them more of this and more of this. And I think as well as that, there's also the censoring. So I find, can I say what's on my mind? Can I really say it? And then if you're putting your name and your picture, this is Abby saying this is Fred saying this. But then you have a picture of a cartoon penguin with a made up name can say anything they want because you don't know who they are. And you've got all of that as well. It can create a real illusion, especially if there are, let's say, robots or fake accounts trying to push certain agendas, inflaming. It really can become a chaotic sea, and that's why it's really important to value contemplation time. And something came up recently for me, which is really interesting when I'm doing my healing sessions, Fred. What came through is the concept of golden time, which is what my children had when they were at primary school. So when they were behaving very well, the teacher would say, you've got golden time now. You have half an hour, 40 minutes, which is a long time for a young child to do whatever you like in that time. But if you bring in the idea of golden times, like you give yourself golden time every day, then you can shut out all of those frequencies and reconnect in to something that's more worthwhile, more of value. And it'd be
It
great if
is golden.
everybody did that?
Didn't I say that it's like a golden light? It's
Yeah.
it's golden time, only it's the timeless place. And it's prior to language. So golden time is not just reading or talking, but has a degree of silence. They also say that old expression, silence is golden.
Yes.
So yeah, there's something there. Do you know that in the Vedic tradition of India, there's this, have you ever heard of Hiranya Garbha, the golden egg?
Oh,
Hiranya Garbha. And it said that at the end of creation, at the end of any cycle of creation, things dissolve back into the golden egg. And you've got all these myths, not only in India, but ancient mythology, where there's an egg floating on the water, the ocean of primal space, the vibrating ocean of space, and there's a golden egg floating on it. And when you study the Hebrew in the Genesis Bible story, it says that the breath of God was stirring the waters. Well, in Hebrew, Ruach Elohim Barakafeth al Panei Hamayim. It says that the breath or spirit of God, you can interpret it either way, was stirring these waters. And the word for stirring, Barakafeth, is a root in Hebrew and Arabic that describes a mother bird sitting on its egg. That stirring, if you've ever been on a farm, they're sort of rustling and stirring to keep the egg
ah,
warm. That's the image in Genesis. So again, it's this golden egg prior to creation, and all creation comes out of this golden egg. Anyway, that's what we're talking about. These
that's
ancient myths,
incredible.
yeah, they
Because
all say,
one of my favorite exercises to do is to imagine that your energy field is a golden egg. I teach this
oh,
to people,
there
and
you go.
you're inside the egg.
That's
And then what you
Hiranyagarbha.
do with your hand is you smooth over if there's any cracks in the egg, and you
Mm,
heal the egg with your intention, and that you can do it from behind you, above you, and below you. And then when you have that, it's like the boundary of the golden eggshell that you can breathe out all of the energies that are in your field that don't belong to you.
mm,
Because there's a lot of thought forms and emotional energy that you pick up from just being around people and from caring about people, and to clear those out. And only after doing all of that do I find that people can then have a stillness of mind. Because it's difficult to be still because you're feeling all the emotions and you're hearing all the thoughts, and they're not always yours, and it's overwhelming and people get agitated. But if you start with the egg, then you're actually in an active state doing something for yourself to
mm,
help bring you into a more peaceful center. And I just think that's brilliant because it's like all of this goodness is everywhere if you just listen, and it comes through in different ways, but it's all the same frequency, the frequency of golden egg, golden time, golden silence.
mm. Yeah. Yes. And one of my favorite beings is Mary Magdalene. And one of the traditional ways that she is portrayed in these paintings, these medieval artists were so knowledgeable about their symbolism. They knew that it came through these ancient symbols rather than theology. So they did it through painting. But she's sitting there or standing there holding this egg, just showing you, and she's got this look on her face like she's not telling you anything, she's just showing you this egg. And people, are always trying to over explain what it means and everything, but I think it's what you're talking about. It's time to get back to the egg. Ah, yes. Well, I would love to share a poem
Please, yes.
called Ancestry. So many people know this poem. I mean, I don't say that about any other poem that I've written, but this one, because I'm kind always hearing it back from all over the world. Oh, they read that at Esalen Institute, or they read that here or there. Somebody made a video of it. But your audience is a little different, so maybe they've never heard this, but I'd love to share it. This poem came about because I went on to Ancestry.com, when that was a fad and everything. And I found out, oh, I just wanted to be all these different things from all over the world. And I found out how really white I was, from Anglo-Saxon India and Anglo-Saxon England and a little bit of Irish, tiny bit of Irish, tiny bit of Welsh. And I realized this is ridiculous, them telling me what I am. And I began to study our DNA a little bit, and I found out this isn't. This poem contained truths about. We share 70% of our DNA with a fruit fly. We do. And we worry about, this person's made of this or that, or this person's of this color and that person's that color. My God, and we're all this wonderful soup that somehow
Yeah.
produces these individuals. So anyway, I wrote this in response. My DNA results came back just as I suspected. My great great grandfather was a monarch butterfly. Much of who I am is still wriggling under a stone. I am part larva, but part hummingbird too. There is dinosaur tar in my bone marrow. My golden hair sprang out of a meadow in Palestine. Genghis Khan is my fourth cousin, but I didn't get his dimples. My loins are loaded with banyan seeds from Sri Lanka, but I descended from Ravana, not Ram. My uncle is a mastodon. There are traces of white people in my saliva. 3.7 billion years ago, I swirled in a hydrogen cloud, dreaming of a planet overgrown with lingams and yonis. More recently, say 60,000 BC, I walked on hairy paws across a land bridge joining Sweden to Botswana. I am the bastard of the sun and moon. I can no longer hide my heritage of raindrops and cougar scat. My mud was molded with your grandmother's tears. I was the brother from another tribe who marched you to the sea and sold you. I was the merchant from Savannah and the cargo of blackness. I was the chain. Admit it, you have wings, vast and crystal, like mine, like mine. You have sweat, dark and salty, like mine, like mine. Don't pretend that Earth is not one family. Don't pretend we never hung from the same branch. Don't pretend we do not ripen on each other's breath. Don't pretend we didn't come here to forgive.
It's beautiful. My first thought is they should teach that in schools. And then my second thought was, well, if they did, they'd probably ruin it.
Pick up a little extra money because I
Uh,
don't have much. I went into substitute teaching last year. I don't know if they
okay.
have that in Ireland, but I went into the public schools. I've always been a private school teacher in my, which is kind of snobby, and then college chaplain. So I went into the public schools, and that's really an interesting experience. But what I loved was third and fourth grade.
So how old
And
are they? Because we don't do grades in Ireland, so I have
oh
no idea.
gosh, they must be They must be eight, nine,
Okay.
eight and
Okay.
nine, something like that. And they love hearing about the cosmos and star. They love stars. They love astronomy. They love hearing about DNA. So I actually read that poem to a class of third graders, and I think they got it. They liked it. They wanted to see my books because they're
That's
writing. They were
beautiful.
working on poetry just when I went in there, so I showed them my books. Like that's a recent one, and but I encouraged them to write. I encouraged them and showed them they can write books and they can find artists to make the cover. And I showed them this one that I made with Rashani Rea, who's an artist from Hawaii. And
Yeah.
this book is full of her mandalas. So my poem is on one side of the page, and her amazing mandalas are on the other side of the
That's
page.
so beautiful. Incredible.
She
Yeah, I
really
have
worked
some of your
hard.
books. I left them at home today. I wasn't, my brain was full. I got into my office and I'm like, oh no.
Oh, well,
But I wasn't going to say, no, let's do it another day because the time is now. We must move when the
no,
time
I didn't come
is.
here to push my books.
Well, I love your books and they're by my bed, which is why I didn't bring them in because the frequency of the words, that's what I want to be surrounded by. You know, if everybody read a poem every day and just really went into, and not necessarily yours, but just
Mhm.
that contemplation space, I think
Well, I think
it
that's,
would give us a buffer zone of resilience to be able to be with the other and not either project directly onto them and start accusing or start becoming defensive, but to just be able to sit and listen.
I think that's what poetry is for, um, and to bring your mind back to its source, and to bring the mind into the heart. And poetry can also be used at times. My brother works in the hospice movement and trains hospice workers, and has a whole course he gives on poetry, using poetry with the dying, with the work people who work with the dying and with the dying, poetry to read to them. And so poetry is by no means an escape from the pain of the world. It's an embrace of that pain. And right, I mean, this poem was written for my sister-in-law. She's on the other side of the country now. That's where my wife is right now with her.
Mm.
Um, and she's been dying for over a year of cancer, her sister, and just won't let go, just shriveled up. And they want her to let go. I mean, there's not, I mean, and, but just won't let go. Anyway, this poem is called Hospice. Is it okay to read this?
Oh, please. It's such a gift.
Yeah, because this poem is very personal, but it can also be used by people working with the dying. In the hospice of the heart, the instructions for dying are instructions for meditation, for prayer. Dear sister, dear friend, now it is time to let go. Nothing real can shake you. What can be shaken is not who you really are. Be grateful even for your fear. It shows you who you are not. What is letting go? Not needing to believe anymore. Just knowing that you are surrounded by the ocean of love. Shall we call it God? It is prior to God, the mother of all things. It is before the mother. This is the ocean of the last breath, which is the first breath, which is the eternal breath of your true name, the grace in whom you drown, and discover that you have always, already let go.
I can't follow that with anything. It's just so beautiful. You have a way of encapsulating something that's too big to put into words while not containing it. You mean you leave it open for the possibility. It's beautiful, and I wish that I could have read that to my aunt as she was dying in the
Mm,
hospice.
mm,
I said this to my children recently. If we were not afraid to talk about dying and death, then the world would be quite a different place. And they didn't quite understand, but I think at least planting the seed that it's okay to talk about it. And I found, well, in Ireland anyway, it's like nobody wants to talk about it.
mm,
And that's you know, it's beginning to shift. It's beginning to move. But it is a cycle of life. And when she died, I had friends say, you know, why are you going to bring the children to the funeral? I'm like, because it's part of life. And if you don't bring the children, then, you know, it's distanced from them. They need to see this. They need to be there. I brought them when my grandmother, you know, had her funeral. And they don't remember her so much, but they do remember the funeral. And that's important.
mm.
That's
Yeah.
such a beautiful poem, Fred. It really is. I haven't heard it before. It's a gift for you to share that. Thank you.
Well, the hospice movement, I think, is one of the most important spiritual movements in society. It's in America, I mean, in the US, it's very, very much happening. And it's interesting how much poetry there is in the hospice movement, use of poetry. And also as a chaplain, interfaith chaplain, not a very orthodox chaplain in any particular church, but memorial services. The funeral happens, you know, around the graveside, and that's usually separate from the memorial service today. And the memorial services, that's where the friends and family, so many are invited. I find them to be very powerful, and even more than weddings or any other ceremonies, memorial services. People, that's one of the few times where people who knew the departed really open their hearts totally in a public way, you know, men as well as women. People talking from a raw and loving place that doesn't happen in the rest of society, not even church services, and certainly not in politics or hardly ever in social media. But
Why do you
memorial
think that
services,
is?
why?
Yeah, why do you think that that is?
Because uh, death is a wonderful, death is like a Zen master who slaps us in the face and says, wake up, here we are. There's nowhere else to go. When someone dies, you just, there you are.
Mm.
And for a little while, you're in that sting of death, or that sting of the slap in the face, and you're awake, and there's no understanding here, so you have to drop down to the heart and speak from that raw place, because this person was your friend. So it's, you're speaking out of loss, and loss is an open door. Loss is an open door. Loss is so important. We are here to experience loss, and it opens so many things. So it's
That goes
okay.
back to your first poem you read, The Shattered Brokenness.
It's okay to lose an election too. That loss can open people's hearts too if they let it.
Well, I think the distance that we're brought away from our heart is really where we are, the realization that we can't live like this. And if, it's a tragedy if somebody is expressing their love for somebody when they've died. Shamanically, the spirit is there, it hasn't gone, and that person will receive those sentiments, that knowing that, yes, this person actually did love me. But maybe in life is where they needed to hear that, to know that, to be seen. I think the biggest gift is being seen. And I've realized this practically recently because my husband has been working the night shift for 7 weeks.
Oh,
So I have felt his absence in the house, in my life. And when he was there in body, he's not really present because he's in a different time zone. He's only waking up when I'm sleeping. And so it was interesting because he'd had enough after 7 weeks because he wanted to go to the allotment on the weekend to tend to his vegetable patch. And he slept through it. He wasn't able to, and then he got angry. So that's what he missed. So he went in and he changed from the night shift to the day shift. And after 7 weeks of working night shift, it's taken him several days to get back into the days. So this morning was the first time that I could see him and he could see me. And I just said to him, I've missed being seen, and I think in a relationship, when I'd be working with couples who forget that they love each other, it goes back to what you said. You get the eye contact, you get that openness, that vulnerability. I see you and you see me. And we accept all the differences. We don't have to be the same. We're not supposed to be the same,
mm,
but we are supposed to see each other. And I suppose with patience, with giving ourselves that golden time, sitting with your words, those frequencies, that I'd like to hold the vision that the world will come to a place where people will be able to see each other, maybe not necessarily understand everything about the other, but appreciate, at some level.
yeah, seeing each other. It happens in moments of loss and vulnerability. And so we have to become more vulnerable to each other. I remember my wife's flying home tonight, but 10 days ago when I took her to the airport and kissed her and I let her out and all, getting to the airport and being on time and everything and getting the bag out there, but then I couldn't stay because the car was there and she was fine. But I felt, oh my God, she's going away. This is the last I'll see her. And she kissed me. Just, gosh, that was the tenderest kiss that I've experienced in seemed like years. It was like because we saw each other and it happened in the
Mhm.
present moment. And it was a moment of loss. And it was so tender and so soft. And then, saying goodbye. So that's how it is here in this plane. We have our little insights into eternity during moments sometimes of breaking and loss and hurt. So it's a very far out planet we live on. I hope we get it back. I
Well, I
hope we
think,
take.
I mean, I could balance that by saying that, give you another example. We were playing with the kids and just talking, and what was the best meal you've ever had in your life? And so I let my husband speak first because I was interested. And he said it was that time in Clifton in County Galway where we went to the hotel and we got scallops and we were falling in love with each other over the meal. And I said, oh my God, that was my best meal ever too. And to be able to recognize that in the moment, that's what this is. It's being present to those moments. It doesn't always have to be loss.
Mm,
I had a client come to me with the most beautiful complaint where he said, I was holding my baby at my baby's christening, and all I could think about was work. And I couldn't be there to experience. I was holding the baby
mm,
and I wasn't there, and I want to be there for these moments.
mm,
You know, it didn't take him long. It didn't take him long, and he's still coming all these years later because he realizes the value of unburdening yourself, if that's a way to describe it, but to release, like I said earlier, other people's emotions, other thought forms, clinging, to say, okay, I am taking my sovereignty and I'm choosing to be responsible and to be here and to experience life instead of to let it all slip past me and then it's gone.
mm. And in the perishing is the beauty. Uh, Wonderful poet, American poet. People don't read much anymore. Named Wallace Stevens has this one line, this hauntingly beautiful line, where he says, "Death is the mother of beauty.
Mm,
Death is the mother of beauty." And that's what Buddha was trying to convey too. That this letting go, because there's no self, there's no permanence. It's impermanence, anatta. And one of the basic principles of Buddhism, impermanence. Everything is dissolving away. It's in that very dissolving that you become aware of beauty, um, preciousness at this moment, because it's not going to last.
no,
The very letting go is a breath, great embrace.
I feel that way about my children, Fred,
Mm,
because they're teenagers now. My baby, my little blondie, blue-eyed baby running around giggling in her little ballerina outfit in the garden in the sun making bubbles. She's gone, but she's not
mm,
gone, but she is gone, but she's not. And my heart misses going around holding my baby all day, talking to them, all the funny things they would say. My other baby's 17. She's still funny and we enjoy spending time together, but it's such a different kind of time. But I wouldn't want to miss that either.
mm. I too have two daughters, and they're, boy, one of them just turned 40. The other one's in her like 35, I guess. But there's not a moment that goes by that when we're with them, or sometimes when we're just talking to them on the phone or something, that it doesn't conjure up a memory of when they were dancing and putting on clothes and watching their favorite movie. They used to watch movies like The King and I, with these beautiful like dresses and things, and they would dress up and dance to the music. And they still remember that, and we still talk about it. And when I look at my daughter Abby, who's like 40 years old, uh,
Great name.
I still see that little girl, and I talk about it with her, and she remembers these things,
Yeah.
and she does little childlike things like gives me crystals that she made for me. And last night she messaged me and said, "Have you ever heard any John Coltrane songs?" She's just discovered John Coltrane. I played tenor sax and I love jazz, so now I'm
You play
helping
the
her discover
sax.
tenor sax. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, I've had a little sort of amateur career at it. I took it back up again after playing, in school. And I played in a blues band at a wine shop, and I've played I'm on CDs with some singers who needed it.
Wow.
Everybody, there was a time there where everybody was making a CD. I played a lot of places with my piano man who just recently died, Red Man, the piano man. And private parties and stuff, amateur stuff, and the Irish flute. I mean, not flute, the Irish penny whistle. Oh, I
Oh,
have
okay.
a collection of Irish penny whistles, every different size. But I love the Irish penny whistle. So I did poetry readings with it. Red Man would play kind of like new age piano, like guided meditation music, and I would read poems, and then as an interlude between poems, I would just improvise on the penny whistle. It's not just a little dance instrument. Has a beautiful haunting sound. Oh my God. So anyway, uh, all that was opened up by talking about Abby, my little girl. She's still my little girl. I know that sounds sexist and patriarchal, but my wife feels the same way. We
Well,
get
I think we have to change the way we think it sounds.
mm,
I don't think it sounds that way at all. And I think any parent would appreciate that
mm,
as well. I mean, I look into my eldest is 24 now, and I can still see her when she was, screaming her head off for the first 3 years, demanding to see me everywhere I went around the house, couldn't be left alone for a second. And now she's very independent, and I'm very grateful whenever I do hear from her. I
mm,
think the value of the present moment needs to be increased. Everybody's valuing, crap, basically. Look at this circus over here, look at this TV show. Keep your eyes on what is not important, and you miss your children growing up, you miss yourself getting older, and all of the brainwashing is so pervasive. It's like you look in the mirror and there's the gray hairs and you're getting older, and you're supposed, we should celebrate this. We're here and we're experiencing and we're learning and we're growing, and you know, a life well lived,
mm,
aspiring to that. I think if
mm.
if if that's your value system, then you can see other people. So,
Yeah, it's important to stay in the stream because there are so many alternate realities being offered to us that are completely fake. They're not the actual stream of existence that
yes.
we're living. It's so easy to get caught in this narrative or that narrative, or what these people, oh, these friends are into this, so I have to be into that, and there's all these other narratives. But your narrative is the stream that you're actually living, and that's being. This is what humans have forgotten, that we're not just human. The human has to get in touch with being. Then you become a human being. There are humans out there who are not being.
Mm.
Their being has been completely overshadowed. I hope not annihilated by the media and the politicians and the bureaucrats and the fears. But when we get back to being, and so what you've been talking about, this coming back to the golden silence, the egg, it's all about coming back to the actual taste of being. I know that sounds obvious or simple, but it's the greatest discovery that we can rediscover is wait, I've been living in this thought stream of other people's thoughts and ideas for like days. Wait, this is like my life is like a weird dream. Come back and taste your being. It's
Mm.
not the same thing as your mind. It's not the same thing as your thoughts. It's not the same thing even as your emotions, although it's through the deepest level of feeling that you contact that. You go beyond words into energy. And for me, it's right here in this beautiful pathway that leads from the mind to the heart. And as I breathe in, I rise up into this space and it's filled with stars. And as I breathe out, I come back down and just let the stars drip down the sternum right into this humble little space, right above your diaphragm, right below your heart. There's a little valley there. And just surrender into that. And it's from that space that worlds are born and that being flows. It's so simple, but we just have to start returning to our being, not to our political philosophy or the last book we read or, the latest new age, teacher and what he said or she said, but to being itself. Yeah.
So do you think that the world is constructed to pull you out of your being?
Not the earth.
The world.
Everything in earth is constructed to as a part of a language to take you back to your being. Everything represents that. But the world that we live in has been taken over by forces. I don't know where they came from or whether we invented them, but they are there to distract us from our being. That's their purpose.
So the
They do
biggest
not
act of
want us to,
rebellion. I was going to
what?
say the biggest act of rebellion that we could do.
To return to that being that
Yeah,
we are. Absolutely. That is the rebellion. That is the revolution.
that is beautiful. And I have loved talking to you. And I'm just wondering, as we close, and I'm hoping that people who watch this have had some sense of returning to their being just from the frequency that both of us are offering through this conversation. Do you have any words that you'd like to say to close our conversation? Another poem, maybe, or a thought, perhaps?
Yes, I'll read this very short poem, and it's for fun. And yet there was a man, I didn't know him. He asked permission for some reason to have this poem read at his deathbed by his friends when they gathered around him. And I was so touched and delighted, especially when you hear it. What a great guy he must have been. It's called No Chakras. Sorry to all you people out there who are into your chakras.
Don't be sorry unless you mean it.
When I laugh, I have no chakras. The sun is my heart. When I cry, the moon comes down to caress my forehead, but finds no lotus to kiss open. Breathing the beloved scent clears my natal chart of every planet and sign. The astrologer is bewildered. All he sees in me is an empty page full of light. Don't give me any more of your esoteric books. Grace has made me too stupid to understand.
Oh, that says everything, doesn't it?
We'll end with a laugh. Bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. So if people want to find your books or find out more about you, I'm going to have all the links below the video and all your books and everything like that so they can read more of you. And maybe we'll do this again
I'd
if you
love
didn't
to.
hate it.
I love to.
Okay.
Thank you.